Okay, we are live. So we are with Jonas from the Firefly Chocolate, right over here in Windsor, California, coming live. And we would like to know more about Firefly Chocolate today. So, hi Jonas.
Hi.
And how did you get started with Firefly Chocolate?
So I got started making chocolate when I was traveling in Oaxaca, Mexico. And I got exposed to traditional chocolate making. So let me take you over here actually.
So by the way, hello, by the way, this is his workshop over here.
So we're in the factory.
So these are cacao beans. When I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, I picked up a cacao bean for the first time. I had eaten chocolate my whole life, but I never touched a cacao bean. And the family I was staying with, kind of the mother of the woman who was hosting us, Maria, she asked, "Hey, have you ever made chocolate before?" And without really waiting for an answer, she went into the storeroom to get cacao beans. And we went ahead and roasted these beans over an open fire on a comal, kind of the traditional way, and then we hand peeled each individual bean.
You hand peeled each individual bean?
Each individual bean.
That will be too much work.
It's a lot of work, but it wasn't not about the quantity of chocolate we were making, but about the connection, both as we were chatting and touching each and every single cacao bean. And I made the best chocolate I'd ever had. So that inspired me to come back to the States and learn all I could about chocolate making. I have a background in engineering, so that basically means I'm a very good problem solver. They've taught us to be resourceful. And so I started researching on blogs and online communities and ordering chocolate equipment and just kind of experimenting and making chocolate and learning as I went. One of the things they teach us in engineering is fail early and fail often. I did just about everything wrong I could have possibly done. But that's how I built up the knowledge base and learned how to ask the right questions and learned how to make good chocolate.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Stanford University and studied mechanical engineering there, both undergrad and master's.
So you had a full-time job before and then...
Yeah, I worked in solar engineering, so doing off-grid power in emerging economies, northern India, sub-Saharan Africa, developing LED lighting solutions and phone charging.
And then you gave that all up for chocolate.
Yeah, you know, I'm someone who needs a steep learning curve, and chocolate was something completely new for me. I also really wanted to try my hand at starting a company after being part of 2 other startups. And I wanted to do something local. I really wanted to share something that I was deeply passionate about with my community.
So what is it that sets Firefly Chocolate apart? By the way, those of you who are joining, we are with Jonas over here at Firefly Chocolate. We are covering his journey from Stanford to a startup job to Mexico to making chocolates.
There's a number of things that set Firefly Chocolate apart. First of all, we're bean to bar chocolate producers. So bean to bar.
Okay, bean to bar.
There's only about 200 makers in the US who actively import cacao from tropical countries and turn it into chocolate. In the past, there's only been a few large industrial producers of chocolate who have this capability. It's really been in the last decade or so that a number of smaller producers, who are now fairly large players, have started developing bean-to-bar capacity.
So what is it? What's the specific thing about bean to bar? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, bean to bar means that we're sourcing, cacao beans. We're looking for amazing cacao from all over the world. Bean to bar producers, you can imagine us more like craft brewers or local coffee roasters. That every chocolate maker brings something unique to the table. And so having a diverse ecosystem of chocolate producers means a lot more good chocolate for the general public. And for example, we're sourcing amazingly sustainably grown cacao from southern Belize. And so we're paying premium prices for cacao that industrial producers would have never paid before, because we're educating the public about how cacao can be grown in a good way, and we're producing really, really high quality chocolate that's different than what you would get from industrial producers. So Another thing that we specialize in is that we do only 85% dark chocolate. 85% dark is kind of the threshold where the health benefits of cacao are shown to really shine through. And as I was making 85% dark chocolate, people kept asking, well, do you have any flavors? And I realized that the market didn't have very many flavors with 85% dark chocolate. So that's something, all of our bars are 85% dark. I'm a dark chocolate lover, and so that's another way in which we're unique. We also sweeten with coconut palm sugar, which is an alternative sweetener to cane sugar. It's lower glycemic index and basically healthier for you. So these are all, we're making really healthy chocolate. You don't have to feel guilty about eating this chocolate at all. It's so good for you, and it tastes delicious to boot. So it's really a product that you can be excited about.
And does it have anything to do with free trade and some trade?
There's a fair trade minimum price for cacao.
Okay.
That suggests kind of a minimum price that farmers should be getting for cacao.
Okay.
We pay approximately twice that to our growers. So it's almost, it's so far beyond fair trade what we're doing that it's almost not even relevant. The fair trade standard, I think, is quite a minimum threshold. But if we're talking about sustaining people's livelihoods and sustaining people's cultures and traditions, they need a much higher price. Mm-hmm. The farmers we're working with, it's a cooperative of 300 farmers. Many of them are indigenous Maya, Mopan, and Quechua farmers, and they're all smallholder farmers, so 1 to 5 acres each. It's not plantation grown cacao, and this is in southern Belize where cacao has been a tradition for a long time, so they're able to continue their culture.
Got it. Can we get to know more about your manufacturing process?
Absolutely.
Can we have
I was
a view?
hoping you would ask.
Okay.
Totally. So I showed you where the cacao beans come from. These are actually the burlap sacks. This is how the cacao gets shipped up to us from southern Belize. Mm-hmm. So the chocolate taste that you're familiar with is actually a product of fermentation. Mm-hmm. So these beans come out of the cacao pod and they are fermented for 6 days, and then they're dried. And so that's the product that we're seeing here.
So that comes from Belize. They fermented for 6 days, and that comes from Belize.
Exactly.
Got it.
So that's just to say that having good partners in chocolate sourcing is essential because they're managing a critical part of both the cacao growing and the cacao fermentation, which really impacts what I can do up here.
Got it.
So we have this amazing cacao.
Uh-huh.
We basically load it onto trays like this. Let's see. Here's a tray of about 3 pounds of cacao beans, and then we load it into our oven right here and do a light roast on the beans. The roasting really brings out the flavor and kind of determines what's available for me to bring out in the chocolate later on. So after roasting, we load it into this rack, cool the chocolate, and then we load it into a cracker, which is this machine here. Basically, what we want to get is this. These are cacao nibs. Mm-hmm. So this is the bean that's been roasted and fractured.
That smells so good. For anybody who's online, they would want to taste this chocolate. This smells really good.
Yeah, these nibs are, the whole process is incredibly aromatic. Uh-huh. So what's happening in the cracking phase is the cacao bean still has a shell on it, and we need to remove that shell.
Got it.
And so the way I did it in Mexico was hand peeling.
Yes.
The modern way to do it is to shatter the whole bean into pieces.
Yes.
And then to use a vacuum to separate the lighter husk and let the nibs drop into the bucket.
Oh, okay.
So that's this kind of home-built contraption here. It's not really set up for use right now.
Okay.
But basically there's vacuums pulling suction on it so that the lighter particles go up and that the heavy nibs drop down.
So how did you even conceive that kind of contraption? Like, where did you conceive it?
Online forums and then my own prototyping and iteration. Nobody's built one quite like this. I think everybody kind of tries it out and then adjusts the process.
And this scales for you well?
Yes, this scales extraordinarily well. This is kind of finally the throughput on this machine is really fast.
So once we have the nibs, what's next?
Once we have the nibs, some of the nibs we bag. We actually sell cacao nibs. If people want to have a direct relationship with the cacao and turn it into something on their own. Otherwise,
so this you sell on your website as well?
Yep, we sell it on our website. These nibs are amazing. There's people who eat cacao nibs who have said these are some of the best nibs I've ever tasted.
So you can just directly eat this too?
Yeah, you can directly eat them.
So these are 100% chocolate then?
100% chocolate, nothing added. So
there's no sugar, nothing?
No sugar, nothing. So, you know, you can mix it with honey or whatever, in whatever way that you desire. You can put it in a smoothie, you can add it to granola, there's many ways to consume it.
Okay.
Next, this is what we want. This is coarsely ground chocolate.
Got it.
You can imagine a cacao bean as being made up of cacao powder and cacao butter.
Got it.
Cacao butter melts at body temperature, room temperature, body temperature. And so we put the nibs back into the same grinding machine, and we tighten down the plates. So it's basically 2 spinning plates, and the friction of that grinding process causes the butter in the nibs to liquefy. And so that's why you can see here it's begun to melt, but it's still very coarse. So we add this coarsely ground cacao paste, we mix sugar in with it and put it in our stone grinders. That's these guys here. You can see there's a little bit of leftovers chocolate in the machine. The circular patterns in the chocolate here, that's just totally the fat crystallizing out of the chocolate. And so basically these wheels spin like this.
And
it runs for
that is rotating.
Exactly. It runs for about 24 hours.
Oh, really?
And that's how we accomplish really smooth chocolate. So you can imagine this is kind of what it looks like after 24 hours.
That is just beautiful.
So
that is just pure chocolate again, but melted.
Yeah, melted and 15% sugar.
15% sugar added. Tell me about the sugar which you add, like.
Coconut palm sugar sourced in Indonesia. If you've never had it before, it tastes a little bit more like brown sugar. Traditionally, it hasn't been used in chocolate making because chocolate makers are wanting to just share the pure taste of cacao and not add any taste of the sugars or anything else. But because of the health benefits, I decided to use it.
So what's so healthy about it?
You know, it comes from the coconut palm.
Okay.
So it is a lot more complex of a sugar than cane sugar or other sugars are. It's got a lot more trace minerals and such in it. Other thing is it's far more sustainable to grow than cane sugar. So it takes a fraction of the resources, especially water, and it can be cultivated more densely. So there's more sugar output per acre. So I think, again, that probably makes an impact on the livelihood of the people who are growing it, because with the same land they can produce more sugar, and it sells at a premium compared to cane sugar.
Got it. And once you have this process down, so we are ready to pack the chocolate, or
this basically completes the texture development of the chocolate.
Okay.
Save for one step.
Okay.
Now what we need to do is develop the flavor of the chocolate. And for that, we should go into the next room.
Yeah.
Just gonna run my ear in it.
So we are here with Jonas. FireflyChocolate.com is where you will find this beautiful chocolate, beautiful and delicious chocolate, and we are going through the process of understanding how he manufactures these chocolates. Can we walk in?
Come on in, yeah. So yeah, this is the cold room. Once chocolate is liquid, it will grab moisture from the air and pull it into the chocolate itself. So it's important to have a dry environment. So that's the air-conditioned cold room that you're in right now. This machine we're looking at right here, this is called a conch. The conch is all about flavor development. So I told you that chocolate comes from a fermentation process. The fermentation, it creates acids which go into the bean. So at the point that it's coming out of the stone grinders, a lot of those acids are still present. And what this machine does is it volatilizes the acid and it basically evaporates some of the volatiles that create an undesirable taste in the chocolate. You know, just a little too bitter or something like that, especially when we're working with 85% dark chocolate. That's really important. So this is kind of the flavor alchemy machine. It's stirring the chocolate in 2 different directions. It's heating the tank it's blowing hot air over it, it's ejecting air, it's recirculating the chocolate. Basically all different methods of getting the chocolate up to temperature in a controlled way, so that we can reproduce how we're changing the flavor of it. So every few minutes we need to sample the chocolate here as we're developing the final flavor. So you can kind of see through this little window here, there's about 75 pounds of chocolate in here at the moment that's moving around. Right now we're just keeping it liquid, but a little bit later I'll be heating it up.
Oh yeah, I see it. Cool.
So once the chocolate's done with this, it's basically done with the flavor development. Then we bring it over here to our tempering machine. This is all about crystallization of chocolate. So kind of as you can see right here, you know, when chocolate solidifies, or what you saw in the stone grinders, it doesn't turn into a nice, shiny, snappy chocolate bar. It turns into more like, you know, something that's not as appealing. It's still delicious chocolate, but it's not, it doesn't have the presentation. So tempering is an essential part of creating the nice presentation of, you know, a nice shiny finished chocolate bar that has a good snap to it, right?
Wow.
And so what the tempering machine does for us, basically chocolate in its solid state has 5 different crystal structures. And we want the type 5 crystal, that's what's creating the chocolate bars that you can see there. And so basically this machine bumps up the energy level of the crystals before pouring it into our molds. These are plastic molds in which we pour the chocolate. And then this machine also meters out the right amount of chocolate. So I'll just demonstrate what that looks like.
Yes, please.
So basically it's going to deposit the right amount of chocolate. Put this tray under. You can see the chocolate is flowing into the mold and spreading out evenly.
So as you can see, we are in the final process of making the chocolate.
And so now I'm just going to distribute it. Bang it a few times to get any air bubbles out, and then it goes into the refrigerator where it cools off for about 20 minutes. And then once it's done in the refrigerator, it contracts a little bit, and so you can just tip it right out. And at that point we have a lot of chocolate bars, and then we go ahead and wrap them. You can see here's our packaging, all prepared, ready to fold up and put our chocolate bars in there.
That is quite fascinating. Are there, how many flavors of chocolates do you do currently?
Currently we do 7 different flavors.
Okay.
Or we actually have 8 flavors on our website. So
Okay.
one of them combining.
Okay.
So-
What are they retailing right now?
We have, where are they? Or
Or like with the price?
we have these bars, which you see right here. Those are $5, and then the bars on our website, which are twice the size, are $9. So they're slightly discounted. I can show you this as well.
These are the flavors?
Yeah.
So what are the flavors? Yeah.
So we have the original bar, we have roasted almond and sea salt, we have toasted pecan and coconut. So roasted almond, sea salt, toasted pecan, and coconut are what we call inclusions. So we take the bar, and then after we mold it, we sprinkle in some flavors on the back. The other flavors we do, this is rebranding as spicy chai, maca, orange and rose, and coffee. Those I actually use the stone grinders again and grind the flavors back into the chocolate. So those are completely incorporated into the bar.
What is the best selling rate right now?
Best selling right now is roasted almond and sea salt, and orange and rose is following closely behind that. Probably one of our most unique flavors. People who love spicy, the spicy chai is also totally.
How did you come up with these flavors? Like, is it just from your personal taste?
Yeah, it's a combination. You know, I brainstormed with friends about what flavors would be fun to make. We came up with like 100 flavors, and then, you know, for a while this was a flavor lab. I was just in here ordering all kinds of flavors and experimenting what would go well with the chocolate. You know, not everything would go well with the chocolate. You have to do sourcing for the flavors, you have to do shelf life tests, so there's a lot of things that determine what would actually finally make a good flavor.
So like overall this process from the point you went to Mexico and you came here, how long of a
It's
period
been
was
a
that?
little over 3 years since I traveled to Mexico. And in this space, we've just started selling to the public really 2 months ago. So
you did a crowdfunding for?
I did a crowdfunding a year ago. We raised $10,000 in pre-orders. We've done a number of other fundraising methods as well, from personal loans, business loans, credit cards, you name it. But basically bootstrapping the company and working with our local community rather than trying to raise outside investment, at least at this point.
And tell me about yourself, outside of this chocolate making, which probably consumes your whole life. What other things do you like to do?
Okay, we'll go back outside. I'm an avid outdoors person, so part of why I live in Sonoma County is there's incredible hiking around here. I love cycling, practicing yoga, dancing. I'm an active person. So the things I enjoy, I love cooking too. All things food related.
So this has been a great session for us. Thank you, Jonas.
You're welcome.
His website is again fireflychocolate.com, and you can find the best dark chocolate, 85% cocoa over there.
Do you ship across the world, or is it US right now? Or?
US only at the moment, but yeah, your orders, they get placed. We ship 1 day overnight in California, so the bars will get to your house fast, and 2 days to the rest of the US.
And cool. So thank you so very much,
You're
Jonas.
welcome.